Hitler's rise to power culminated in the establishment of a dictatorship between 1933 and 1934, a process marked by strategic political maneuvering and the ruthless exploitation of opportunities. While the Nazi Party had become the largest party in the Reichstag by 1932, it did not have an outright majority, and Hitler had not yet secured the chancellorship. His ascent to this position was made possible through a political deal with conservative elites who believed they could control him and use his popularity to stabilize the government and suppress the left. By late 1932, Germany was mired in political deadlock. The Weimar Republic was paralyzed by the inability of any single party to form a stable government. President Paul von Hindenburg, a revered war hero, had already appointed two chancellors, Heinrich Brüning and Franz von Papen, who had failed to command a majority in the Reichstag. After the July 1932 elections, the Nazis emerged as the largest party, but Hindenburg was reluctant to appoint Hitler as chancellor, distrusting him and his radical agenda. However, by November 1932, after further political stalemate and under pressure from his advisers, Hindenburg turned to Kurt von Schleicher, a general who sought to form a broad coalition, but this too failed. At this point, conservative elites, including von Papen, and influential industrialists, began to consider Hitler as a solution to the political crisis. They believed that by bringing him into power, they could control him and use his mass appeal to restore order, while sidelining his more radical plans. Von Papen, in particular, played a key role in persuading Hindenburg to appoint Hitler as chancellor. The political deal was struck on January 30, 1933, when Hindenburg appointed Hitler as chancellor, with von Papen as vice-chancellor. Crucially, they believed that by limiting the number of Nazi ministers in the cabinet to just a few, they could outmaneuver Hitler and maintain control over the government. However, this underestimation of Hitler's political acumen and ambition proved to be a fatal mistake. Once in power, Hitler wasted no time in consolidating his position and eliminating his opponents. The Reichstag fire on February 27, 1933, provided the perfect pretext for Hitler to take drastic measures. The fire, which gutted the Reichstag building, was quickly blamed on the communists, although it is widely believed that the Nazis either orchestrated it or took immediate advantage of the situation. Hitler used the fire to stoke fears of a communist uprising and persuaded President Hindenburg to sign the Reichstag fire decree the following day. This decree suspended civil liberties, including the rights to free speech, assembly, and privacy, and allowed for the arrest of political opponents without due process. It effectively gave Hitler and the Nazis the power to crush their rivals, particularly the communists and social democrats, who were arrested en masse. In the lead-up to the March 1933 elections, the Nazis used a combination of intimidation, propaganda, and outright violence to ensure their success. The SA, the Nazi paramilitary wing, was unleashed on the streets to terrorize opponents and disrupt the campaigns of other parties. Political meetings of opposition parties were violently broken up, and their leaders were harassed, arrested, or even killed. The Nazis also controlled the media, using it to spread their propaganda and drown out any dissenting voices. In addition to these dirty tricks, the Nazis engaged in widespread electoral fraud, manipulating the results wherever they could. Despite these tactics, the Nazis still did not achieve an outright majority in the March 1933 elections, securing 43.9% of the vote. However, with the support of their conservative allies, they were able to pass the Enabling Act on March 23, 1933. This act, which required a two-thirds majority in the Reichstag, effectively gave Hitler dictatorial powers by allowing him to enact laws without the Reichstag's consent, including laws that violated the constitution. The vote was held in an atmosphere of intense intimidation, with many opposition deputies either absent or voting under duress. The passage of the Enabling Act marked the final nail in the coffin of the Weimar Republic and the beginning of Hitler's totalitarian regime. With the Enabling Act in place, Hitler moved swiftly to dismantle the remaining institutions of democracy and eliminate all political opposition. Trade unions were dissolved, opposition parties were banned, and the Nazi Party became the only legal political party in Germany. By the summer of 1934, following the Night of the Long Knives, in which Hitler purged the SA and other potential rivals, his control over Germany was complete. Hindenburg's death in August 1934 allowed Hitler to merge the presidency with the chancellorship, solidifying his position as Führer and cementing the Nazi dictatorship. In conclusion, Hitler's establishment of a dictatorship was the result of a calculated political deal that allowed him to gain power, combined with the brutal and unscrupulous tactics the Nazis used to consolidate that power. Through a mix of political cunning, violence, and exploitation of legal mechanisms, Hitler was able to dismantle the Weimar Republic and establish his totalitarian regime, leading Germany into a dark and devastating chapter of its history.